know what? Screw the intro because I totally hit the wrong button. But welcome to another episode of Shape the Podcast. You know me, Kyle Waller. I'm your host. All right. But not tonight, because tonight is a very special night. If I can find it, we have this.
Yay!
Shape Takeover. She's taking over the podcast, everybody. Tonight's host is the lovely Krista Waller, my better half.
Hello.
What's this? I have no words. I'm guessing that our friends over at the British Flamingo made that shirt for my wife. Those of you who
are you a little speechless for a second?
I have no words. Those of you who don't know, my nickname is Baby Hands because my hands are abnormally small for a guy. Okay, I'm 45 years old and I have the hands of a 10-year-old. Let's just be honest.
Prepubescent.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess Mark and Carrie surprised me with that. It says I love I love Mr. Baby Hands. So yeah, you can get your I love Mr. Baby Hands shirt over at the British Flamingo, who's great friends of ours. But anyways, I hope everybody has had a great 2 weeks. Because 2 weeks ago we did celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the podcast, which went swimmingly well, I think. And then tonight, I said, you know what? Let's start the second season of Shape. Let's start it with Ladies' Night. So I'm only going to be here for a sweet little...
About now.
Yes, about now. So Chris is going to take over.
I know. Scary thought.
So if you comment...
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, she doesn't know what she's doing. She will be able to see your comments if you do comment.
I'll try and click on them. We'll see.
But she's going to introduce the guest of the evening because we do have a guest backstage who is sitting in her car at her
football game.
Yeah, at a PB football game or something like that. But anyways, have a great show, everybody.
All right, now we got to do some rearranging. Get out of here.
Anything that goes wrong is my wife's fault.
Whatever.
Just remember that. And don't worry, Mark and Carrie, I got you.
Oh, I have a cord I got to maneuver?
Yep. Joe Conley's on there.
Joe! Well, of course he is.
All
right, everybody. Oh, Lord. Okay. All right, so let's try to figure this out, okay? All right, so tonight we have Erica Conley joining us. I don't know if everybody here... What's up, Joe? I see you. Erica Conley has been a part of the bearding community for quite some time. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I'm not for sure how long you've been in it. But anyways, she has 4 years. She has a pretty interesting story that, we kind of collaborated together and brainstormed this idea in hopes of helping others with her story. Maybe get some tools to kind of maybe help people cope with certain things. So with that being said, I am going to bring Erica on stage. There she is. So how about you tell us a little bit more about you? About yourself.
About me. Okay.
You.
Oh, that's a hard one. So first and foremost, I am Erica Conley. I'm wife, mom, homeschool teacher. I tutor kids. I work with the special needs communities a lot.
Someone tells me you cook.
Oh, just very little. I'm actually known for my cooking, which I'm fine with. It brings me great joy to feed people. And that's actually part of our story tonight is why I cook so much.
All right. So I guess, you know what? We might as well not waste any time, right?
Okay.
Just want to get into it. So
sure.
Tell me about your childhood.
Oh, wow. So trigger warnings, just to let everybody know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about sexual assault, maybe a little bit, abandonment, starvation and drugs, overdosing and death, So there might be a little uncomfortable spots there. If you do, feel free to drop out. It's no big deal. Or you can ask questions too.
Yes. And just, I'm putting this out there. We are not psychologists. We are not any of that. We're just hanging out and talking. So we are not saying we are, professional people in this field, no matter anything. So take that with, a grain of salt. So.
Right. So my childhood was extremely chaotic. I come from a family that's divorced. Multiple remarriages on my biological father's side. My mother remarried who I call my dad now. I dealt with losing grandparents, raising myself at quite a bit of my childhood, raising my little sister, being like the woman of the house when I was like 8 years old. Like, it's just unreal what I went through. But all of that crafted me to what I'm in today. I was raped the first time when I was 9. I went and did the right thing and told my dad, my biological father, said, hey, this happened. And he went, you're a whore.
I bet that made you feel amazing. Like, seriously.
Yeah. He starved me a lot. That's why I cook so much.
Okay.
I almost starved to death as a child. I was drinking so much water to fill my stomach that I was annihilating my red blood cells. I had amazing teachers who would sneak me food and help me during the day and work with me, but it's hard to build relationships when I went to 25 schools before I graduated.
I was going to say, where did you mainly, what area did you grow up in?
Well, I started in Orlando.
I didn't know that.
My husband and I were both born in Orlando. And I moved out of Orlando when I was about 8 or 9. I think I was 8. It was the day after my mom's wedding, to go live with my biological father. Big mistake, huge. But I moved up to Indianapolis. And I've lived in probably 20 places in Indianapolis, or just Indiana State. I've lived in Kentucky, Texas, Tennessee. Yeah, I think it's the states I've lived in.
Wow. Okay.
So we bounced around a lot, but it wasn't because of military. It was because of drugs.
Yeah.
Something that was not me.
So it was your father, I'm assuming?
Biological father, yeah.
Biological father. Okay. And was he with it? It was just him?
He married, I want to say it was 6 times before he died last month. I think it was 6 or 7 times. I don't know.
It was on 2 hands. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah. I was never present at any of the marriages. But the last time I stopped talking to him was June 10th of 2003. That was my deployment date for boot camp. And that was the day I got away from horrible trauma and abuse and neglect and just everything. So it was a good day that day.
So it was almost like you were free? A little bit?
To a point. While I was in boot camp, because I was 17 and I was still a junior in high school, he had control of my checking account. So he stole all my money while I was in boot camp and left me penniless when I got out. And then he burned all my stuff.
And I bet that was probably, for drugs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or the club he was in,
what kind of?
It was a motorcycle club.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to get into that or? Okay.
We're just going to leave it as a club.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not going to identify that club because they could just stay away.
Well, yeah, that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Good thing.
So, but total freedom didn't come until July 14th of this year when he passed away alone.
Well, I mean, kind of did that to himself though.
Exactly.
So at least, you're not looking behind your back anymore and wondering, is today the day that I'm going to run into the person that ruined your life? And it's, like took your childhood away.
I call it your Neverland.
There you go.
He stripped me of that very young. I was meant to raise my sister at the early age of like 4 and 5. So that's not what you do.
Yeah. So it was just you and your sister then?
We later found out when I was 13 or 14, we actually had an older half sibling. But she's currently in prison for drugs.
So the apple didn't fall far from the tree?
Not with her.
Oh my.
But she's just as traumatized, I thoroughly believe.
Your older sister?
Yeah.
And you never, no.
I don't talk to her. Nope. June 10th, 2003 was the last time I saw him. I said, deuces.
Uh-oh. What is my husband just stood up. What are you doing?
I'm taking a picture.
Are you taking a picture of my shirt?
Uh-huh.
You better smile, Krista.
Nope, that was not good. That's terrible.
I thought you were just taking a picture of the shirt. You're not supposed to take a picture of me. Why is he doing this in the middle? He's interrupting. He just wants to be a part of it. Do you just want to sit down?
Okay, good.
Oh, whoops. I just pulled something that I wasn't supposed to.
But, in all of the trauma, I got lucky. I had grandparents who truly loved me.
Who helped you through that? Who was there for you?
Well, unfortunately, my grandmother, my best friend in the world, she died when I was 8 in 93. Her anniversary, or 21-year anniversary just passed. She was everything to me. I just recently went by her old house and our old church that she attended, and her legacy is still in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and her legacy is still in that church. So you want to talk about a woman who loved me and church? That was her. And then there was my grandfather, her husband. He unfortunately died. Oh gosh, how old am I? I think 18 years ago.
Oh, wow. How old am I?
Yeah, I don't remember how old I am. And then I had two step grandparents, my stepdad, who I call my father, his parents, which actually one was his stepmom. Her name was Joyce, and then his dad was Lloyd. And they got a very broken little girl. My parents had just divorced. My grandmother had just died. My grandfather actually had a massive heart attack and died when my grandmother died, and I saw him carried out. They were able to resuscitate him.
Wow.
It was just so traumatic for an 8-year-old. And then I didn't realize it, but everybody's trying to keep everything afloat, but my sister and I were just kind of pushed to the side. And Joyce saw us and she went, oh no. And she always had our favorite juicy juice ready because she was our next door neighbor. She always had our favorite juicy juice, and we always cooked. And we made an earthquake cake by accident one time. And it was the best cake we ever had in our lives. And
how do you make an earthquake? Wait, an earthquake cake by accident? Sorry, this podcast is just going everywhere.
So we had made like a devil's food cake.
Okay.
And we flipped it too soon and it cracked. So to fix it, we filled all the cracks with icing. And it took almost 2 tubs. And so once we had it iced and everything, because Lloyd liked his desserts, when we had it done, we ate it. Oh my God, it was so good.
I bet.
It was delicious. So that's an earthquake cake. So it was always our joke that we made earthquake cakes.
There you go. And you still make them, I'm sure. Maybe. No,
I wish I did, but I don't. But, I have all those fond memories to look back on, thankfully, because as my therapist of 13 years, almost 14 years, has said, I am a statistic that should be in a ditch with a needle in my arm, dead.
Oh, absolutely.
So part of tonight's podcast is mental health.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be willing to seek it because we have to realize we're damaged. I didn't want to hurt my fresh baby at the time, who's now 15.
Mm-hmm.
And he's autistic.
How is he 15 already? Sorry.
I know. Yeah, he was like 11 or 12 when you met him. And he's taller than me now. He's almost 6 foot tall.
Jesus.
I know. It's the time's flying.
He's not a baby. He's a little man.
I know. He's born at 5 pounds. But I had been misdiagnosed as bipolar. And so, yeah, I don't fit all of the criteria for it.
No.
I was diagnosed by a family practitioner, no psychological background. She put me immediately on strong antipsychotics. She also got,
please don't tell me.
I can't remember the name now, but it was like $10,000 a month without insurance. Yeah. It was like really up there.
I do at least have a psychology degree. Not that I know much. And I do work as a nurse, and I do a lot with like medications and things like that so that, you're not the mold for bipolar. No.
Well, back then.
True.
I was very explosive. I would have mass, like, extremes of emotions. But this doctor is the one who prescribed Vicodin, like Tic Tacs, and got me addicted. And she has since lost her license. She did like 10 years ago. But she would let people from out of state come to her for their prescriptions.
One of those.
Yeah. So she's done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also part of the trauma. I am 19 years sober addict.
Yeah.
So, it's hard when addiction is something you fight, no one talks you through it. Mm-hmm. And then you're misdiagnosed as bipolar, and you're not bipolar. And so you're a single special needs mom at the age of 25 who goes to college to get their degree. And you go to the mental health center because you need to find out what kind of type of bipolarism you have so you can get properly medicated so you don't hurt your child.
Mm-hmm.
And my therapist, he has since left the college I was at. He went to the mental health prison in Manchester. He's like, "You're not bipolar, honey." He's like, "You are loaded with trauma."
Yeah, it's almost like a post-traumatic.
I have CPTSD. So PTSD, people think it's only for people who've been in the military, which I did not receive any of my PTSD from the military. They actually helped me out.
I was going to say, you were in the military, but yeah.
They helped me out with getting a lot of things taken care of. But I was traumatized from my own biological father and mother. The two people in this world who are supposed to love you more than anything. And I have my own 3 kids. And I don't understand how they parented the way they did. But that's not for me to understand.
No, you'll never understand. And you'll never know, sadly. And that's the worst, not knowing. Yeah. But maybe in the end, it's a blessing.
Yeah. So with CPTSD, it's complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It's where you've been repeatedly exposed to so much trauma. It's literally rewired your brain. Mm-hmm. And for the last 13, 14 years, I've been in the process of wiring it correctly.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you got to undo all that. You got to undo all the, knots or whatever you want to call them, and, untangle all that to kind of get back to yourself, if you can, I
didn't even know who I was, to be honest. I had no idea who I was at the time.
Well, you're pumped full with antipsychotic medication and Vicodin, and,
mm-hmm.
you lost yourself, in essence.
Yep. So it's been a journey. But the thing with trauma is that it's messy. And a lot of people don't like to deal with trauma.
Or they don't want to talk about the trauma, and they put it aside and never fully process it and never fully get over that trauma. And then if you throw a different trauma,
right,
hide that, a different trauma, hide that, something's going to happen.
Exactly.
Something not good is going to happen, whether it's, people go to extreme behaviors, suicide, whatever it may be, addictions and things like that, to kind of make the pain go away, to numb the pain, but it never goes away.
Right. And that's just the hard part of trauma. I've had to relive scenarios and feelings. I have had a couple anxiety attacks where I thought I was going to pass out because I was hyperventilating, and my therapist was with me trying to recenter me. Going through what's called EMDR therapy. It's one of the most intense therapies you can go through. You basically put yourself back into the situation you don't want to be in.
And you force yourself,
Yes. But I think the most important thing about all of that is I've learned what I can control. I've learned that not everything was my fault that I was told was my fault. I learned a lot of lessons on what not to do. And I learned that I really, really love my grandparents, even though they're all gone. And their love is what protected me for so many years, because it was the only good part about me for a long time.
Yeah. That makes sense. So what made you decide to finally, I'm done with pills. I'm done with how I'm living my life. I need, what brought you to that point? What finally made you realize?
My grandfather had, okay, so let's go back to when I was like 21, 22.
If you want to talk about it, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm glad you asked, because that's really important. So my grandfather, my mom's dad, he was in the ICU in South Bend, Indiana. He was dying. And my stepdad's dad came out to help us, Lloyd. We found out when Lloyd got to us, he was riddled with cancer, skin and bones. This is a very strong man. He did construction most of his life. He was nothing but skin and bones. And we were like, what's going on? We took him to the doctor, and he had cancer from head to toe, and he died within 14 days of him coming home to help us with my other grandfather.
Oh, wow.
8 days after he died, after Lloyd died, my grandfather died. In the process of my grandfather being in the ICU for 3 months, I got married in the courthouse. I wanted my grandfather to know that I was safe and taken care of.
Makes sense.
Right, because that's what he was wanting for me, was to be taken care of. So they both died. 10 months before that, my grandmother died, Joyce, and my dog died the day after her.
Oh.
That was hard. And you know what I was told by my loving mother? You don't have time to grieve. You have to go take care of your little sister.
Well, who are you? So you were living with your mother? No?
I was taking care of her house. She was driving truck.
Okay.
But she had quit while my grandparents were sick. Obviously, I mean, it's their dads.
Oh, yeah.
So they get the estate settled and everything. And nobody knows this. I've never told Joe this. I've never told anybody this. Grandfather still had a big bottle of Vicodin left over from that one doctor. And as soon as he died, I went right to his bathroom because I would not touch it while he was alive. And I took just a handful. My ex-husband walked around me in my own kitchen for like 2 days while I was passed out. I tried to overdose. I wanted to kill myself. My life was over. I just buried 3 of my grandparents.
Well,
my
yeah,
dog that
span
I
of
had.
what, like,
Yeah. And then shortly after I had recovered from that, I started having.
Well, how did he walk around you for 2 days? I'm sorry.
Well, see, I didn't know my ex-husband had a girlfriend at the time.
Oh, so he might not have been there a whole lot.
He just kept me cleaned up so that way I wouldn't get bed sores.
Well,
And that was my own fault. I should not have done that.
well, no, but yeah.
He could have called an ambulance. That probably would have been the better response, but I can't blame or fault him.
Mm-hmm.
That was my own fault.
You were breathing.
I was breathing. I was just, my soul had died because everything I loved was gone.
You had nothing left, in essence.
Oh, I didn't. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to take care of my sister, trying to nurture a new marriage.
Sister. Do you mind
She's a
asking?
year and a half younger than me. So when I was 21, she was 19. And my grandmother actually died on her birthday.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's a great reminder, but yeah.
Right. So you want to talk about trauma as a young adult and not understanding like what's going on in life because everyone's just always been in survival mode and you don't know how to handle all of this.
Mm-hmm.
This was my spiral to the end, really. This was my 2 years of I am rock bottom because everything was just over and I didn't know what to do. But after my OD, I started bleeding uncontrollably from my uterus and they didn't know why. A couple months after my grandparents had passed. And I went to 4 or 5 different gynecologists and nobody knew why.
Really? Like it wasn't a miscarriage or
No, they don't know why. I was just gushing blood.
Okay.
Blood transfusions, double red, platelets, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was put on bed rest and my parents came off the road again and quit their job to come take care of me. And I made my sister promise she would continue at university to not come home. That I wanted her to stay in university so she could get her education.
That was the best place for her. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, she had her boyfriend, who's her now husband. They've been together like 19 years. I was like, no, education's important because our grandfather taught us that faith and education are the only 2 things nobody can take away from you. So let's keep on that path. I lost my faith at that time because I was very angry at God. I found out my ex-husband had his affair. We were trying to save money to buy a house and all that money and credit cards and things were racked up in my name and he spent all the money and just lived the life.
In your name?
In my name. Yep. I walked out with his girlfriend.
Sorry.
It's yeah, I can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, but you did get you got a good little guy out of that. He's not little anymore, but.
Oh no, that's not his dad.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You ready for the best part? You're good. You're good. No, so I have no ties and links to my ex-husband, thank God. So I was near Chicago. I come to Kentucky because I was only going to stay with my sister for about 6 months. And then I was going to go.
So where was she? So she was going to school at where?
Morehead State.
Morehead. Okay.
And I was near Chicago.
Yeah.
So,
Chicago.
Yeah, I hate it up there. So I go to my sister's and I'm like, I'm only going to stay here 6 months and then I'm going to finish my trip down to Dallas. And because I had lived in Dallas for a brief time, miss it a lot. Great city. My uncles also live there. And my Uncle Bruce is he's the other black sheep of the family. And he and I are like this sometimes. And he's just amazing. He is my best friend. But I met this guy, and after being told I would never be able to have kids from uncontrollable bleeding, I got pregnant.
Aww.
And everyone was so mad at me, and I didn't understand why.
Yeah. Sorry,
But
someone wants to join us.
You're fine. But, I was 23 years old, fucking up my life like there is no tomorrow. And I actually had my suicide planned. And my sister was going to Williamsburg, Virginia with her then boyfriend, who's now her husband. And I had rented a studio apartment. I had signed everything over to my sister. I was going to blow my brains out and hopefully have my brother-in-law find me after I'm dead, so that way nobody could resuscitate me. 2 days before I was to do that, I found out I was pregnant with my oldest.
Oh, so that obviously that changed your path.
Did. For the best thing ever. David does not know that story. David would not be able to process that story where he's autistic.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. But he is my knight in shining armor. He is my greatest accomplishment in this little world. He's just amazing. And I realized for the first time in my life when I found out I was pregnant, somebody needed me more than I actually needed myself.
Absolutely. You didn't want to give him the childhood that you had and keep repeating the cycle. Someone has to break the cycle. I'm sorry.
Yes. So that brings us into generational trauma. The attitudes of, oh, just get over it. That applies to some things. That doesn't apply to everything. And that's generational trauma. The way I was beaten is traditional trauma. But we don't ever think about the mental and emotional trauma that comes with adults making you keep secrets, adults making you smuggle drugs, adults doing all the things they should not be doing in front of kids.
But, it makes me think, like, where they had to learn it from some,
Well, my biological father did learn it from his biological mother, who learned it from her mother.
And just kept repeating, sadly.
Right.
So.
Yes.
That just, sometimes it just boggles my mind. Like, you lived it, you saw it, but then you still choose to, you gotta be, and I know that's easier said than done,
Right.
It is way easier said than done, but it just, you gotta know to get the help you need. Sometimes you can't do it yourself too,
Right. Well,
and everyone's story is different.
Right. And a part of me believes that John, at one point, did try to break generational trauma. He did not succeed because he tried to do it himself. And that just does not work.
And then, obviously, he fell right back in,
Exactly. So, there's a bunch of this to mental health. I've been in trauma therapy for well over 13 years, and I'm going to continue, and I'm in another hard part of my trauma therapy, which is unfinished business.
Oh, shit.
Well, I'll never get to ask John why for so many questions. I've asked my birth mother, who's still alive, and she won't talk about it. Because then she would have to admit that she abused me. And she can't do that.
At some point in time, you just got to woman up.
Yeah.
And put your children first for once, not yourself. And mind you, I might have a cat come back through. She's trying to navigate. You might hear a loud boom. But
I will say, my therapist, when he met me, he said I was like dynamite. I was going to explode at any time. And through immense pain. I've come out of a 45-minute session feeling like I had just run a marathon, and I was exhausted for 4, 5, 6 days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you have all the physical things that come with it, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Oh, yeah. The physical stress of dealing with trauma, I would walk out of there sweating. I have chronic migraines from nerve damage, from being beaten, that I received Botox for it. It will instantly give me a migraine. People will tell me my neck will look like it is cement because I'll be so stressed out.
You'll be
so to remember. Yeah. So I always have to remember to lower my shoulders. But
then you come out of it and you have to go right back into being a mom.
No.
No, not then. No.
Nope. Because I do something after every therapy session. I go and do self-care.
Okay. What do you do?
Well, as you know, I love my Backstreet Boys. That my youngest was named after Kevin from the Backstreet Boys. Yes, I'm that mom. Lots of Backstreet Boys. But I also listen to heavy metal. So lots of heavy metal.
Okay. So you listen to music. That's what you're trying to.
Oh, yeah. Or I'll go and see my sister and her 3 kids, and her husband. I'll sometimes I just go to Buc-ee's because I just need a break.
Buc-ee's is pretty fun.
It's a lot of fun. And them smoked brisket sandwiches.
Never. I'm not a brisket person, but anyways.
Then try a pork one. It's delicious. Yeah, I have to take self-care after that. I have to regroup myself. Yeah. I have to remember that first and foremost, I'm Erica. I'm not mom or wife. My relationship with myself is the most important earthly relationship I will ever have. And that is hard to understand when you're a single special needs mom to an infant. Because your life revolves.
Well, and think back, he's what, 15 now, right? 15 years ago, we didn't have the knowledge that we do now.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to think back of, 15 years ago, your mother's, raising a child. You didn't have, chances are there wasn't a support group or a doctor that specialized in it yet, or, all the things. You had some help, but nothing like they do now.
Right. The only help I got was I had financial assistance for daycare because I was a single mom. Mm-hmm. So that got me until 6:00 that night, while I was going to college and working full time. And then David had 15. He had speech, occupational, and physical therapy every day, Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I attended 95% of those. Sometimes I had to see him at daycare. Thankfully, they reduced to like 2 times a week at some point. Mm-hmm. But I had no tribe. My mom lived around the block from me. She was half a block away and wouldn't even help me. Mm-hmm. I would get chastised if David was sick. He's sick. Well, kids get sicker overnight. They
do.
And
they
it's
always run
finals
the temperature like in the afternoon or in the wee hours of the morning. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, David had pneumonia. I mean, what do you want me to do? And it's finals week. And if I miss my finals, I fail my semester.
Sorry, I had a dog that was licking me and trying to get on my lap.
Fine. But she would walk 8 miles to my sister's house to go help her. Mm-hmm. And my sister had a husband. I was a single mom. I'm not saying I was entitled to more help. I'm just saying it would have been nice to had some.
Does she still close?
Yeah, to my sister. That's okay.
Yeah.
But in all of this, like especially with like my mom, I had to learn something called boundaries. Mm-hmm. And I used to call them emotional restrictions.
Well, that's fancy. Are you trying to be technical on us?
No, that's just what I personally call them because I thought if I told somebody no, I was hurting them. Mm-hmm. How could I tell somebody no? They need my help. They're asking me. Mm-hmm. And that's something that my therapist taught me. He's like, no, boundaries. If you don't have time, it doesn't fit on your plate.
It doesn't matter.
Say no.
Yeah. That is something I struggle with personally. Absolutely.
I still do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm human. So my love language is community service. I've had to tell a lot of people or organizations, I'm sorry, I'm booked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't do that. I still have to work. I have a family to take care of, but I'm booked. But I might have other time on another day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
It's
you know.
just, so learning self-care, learning good boundaries, and then the last part I would say would be learning what you can control.
Absolutely.
So,
mm-hmm.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because sometimes I never thought about it like that. But yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's like, you know, my parents, I couldn't control what they did.
Mm-mm.
That was them.
But you can control
my life, my actions,
mm-hmm.
and what I do now.
Absolutely.
And even though the trauma was their actions, it's still my responsibility to process it in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. So I break that generational trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been the most exhausting adventure of my life. And I would do it again in a heartbeat because the outcome has been so rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, you have a beautiful family.
Oh, thank you. I'm just a little biased, you know.
You know, you had to, you know, name your baby Kevin. Sorry. We had to go back to that. I could.
Yeah.
I'm just impressed that Joe agreed to that one. Just saying.
Okay, so.
Oh, Lord.
My ex, David's dad, named him David. And Joe named Grayson Grayson. And I used to co-parent with my ex before he became a skadoosh bag. And so I was like, fuck you both. I'm naming this one. And I've always wanted a Kevin.
So what if he was a girl?
It would have been Savannah.
Okay. I was going to say, were you going to turn one of the names into a girl's name?
No.
I don't know. Sorry.
Nicolea.
You could have done Nikki.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a fan of that name, but that would have worked.
I'm not either, but it would have fit the...
Yeah. No, her name would have been Savannah Lynn. So,
Too
but...
funny. And now he's playing football. Yeah.
And now he's playing football, tackle football. And people are going to think this is strange, but all three of my kids and my husband are also in therapy.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope. Because sometimes therapy is great for a mental health checkup. And sometimes therapy is great to not realize that you have a problem and just sharing, you can work on it and get it solved.
Well, and how do I say this? Not necessarily in therapy for them, but also as a family, you know, when you have someone that has had that heavy trauma, you know, I'm sure they don't know everything that happened or anything like that, but yet they can still feel that from you. You know, mm-hmm. They're still catching on, you know, something wasn't right. We don't talk about that, you know, other kids, you know, so they can still feel those feelings, and that still rubs off on them in some way, you know,
yeah. They didn't understand why they couldn't eat Doritos around me. The first guy who raped me would eat Doritos and then rape me. And so the smell of Doritos is triggering. So,
yeah.
Right. And it just rightfully so. So mm-hmm. I told my kids, I cannot handle the smell of Doritos. Enjoy them when mom's not around.
Mm-hmm. At school, friend's house. But brush
exactly.
your teeth.
Don't come near mom. And they were asking me, why? And it bothered me, is what mm-hmm. I would tell them. And at first that worked. But then they were getting older. And they're like, well, why does it bother you? And I was like, oh, shit. Here's the talk.
How do I answer this? Yeah.
So, in very simple terms, I told them that I had been sexually assaulted at a young age at 9, and that he would eat Doritos beforehand. And now that John has died and they're now aware that he has died, they've asked a little bit more about that situation when I was 9. And they're getting just a little bit more, because they're older.
Creeping. Trying to get a little bit more and more.
Well, they want to understand why mom is the way she is, and that's just normal, I think.
Well, and they love you, so they
Right.
want, yeah. I think it's just a healthy, but yeah.
So, but the good thing about therapy, do what?
I'm sure, have them being in therapy and you being in therapy can help them get through that too, knowing that your mom went through X, Y, and Z and those type of things, Yeah.
But everybody being in therapy has been really nice with like communication. And we have something called office hours. You go to your room for an hour, nobody messes with you because you're in office hour. You get quiet
nothing wrong
time.
With that.
Nope. We also exactly. Everybody needs to decompress. I do
that every night. I swear, I get home from work and Kyle tells me about every freaking minute of his day, and God love him for that. But sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to talk. I just need to unprocess all these things because, I mean, literally, if you would sit with me in my office, it's like squirrel 24/7, and by the time I get home, and if it's an exhausting week like this week has been, like, yeah, I need my office hours. I'm going to start using that. Thank you.
You're welcome. We got tired of looking at each other during COVID, so that's where that came from. Lived in a very small apartment at the time. It was right before we bought the house. But the best thing is that my kids will come to me. Hey, Mom, this is weird about my body. Hey, Mom, somebody said this. How do I handle that? Hey, Mom.
I mean, that's pretty intuitive for young boys. Yeah.
And they don't go to their dads. They
don't need to unprogram the good things.
But I don't have the equipment to understand what they're going through.
Well, Joe.
So I try to learn. But it's been good for opening doors that I never knew were potentially closed. And then there was a very tragic situation with my middle son where he was sexually assaulted. And he didn't know what to do. And I was like, whoa, kid. That's when he found out I had been raped, was the first time. And I was like, whoa. He thought therapy, we were going to, he was like, he thought therapy, we were going to talk about like what had happened. I was like, oh no, we're going to talk about the feelings of trauma. And that made the difference. And he's been with his therapist for almost 4 years, I think, 3-4 years. And it's been a great working relationship.
I know, but that poor baby, I know, he's not anything close to a baby, but I'll
always be 3 in my mind. But it's unfortunately the trauma gave us more to connect on. But when something else happened, guess who was the first person he called?
You.
Me. And guess who was just happening to drive past his school so I could go handle the situation? So there's therapy is hard and it's yucky and messy, and sometimes when we don't do therapy, we bleed on each other from trauma. And yet it's been one of the most rewarding tools in my family that I can't be anything but grateful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, kudos to you guys for being strong enough. Therapy is scary. Therapy's, like you think, do I really need therapy? You know, like people will do anything they can to get out of it or to choose not to. But, you know, and even
or
if
like
you're
the one.
yeah. Or even struggling out there, you know, a lot of companies have programs where if you need help, or I forget what ours is called, but anyways, if you need help and things like that, they'll find you someone and they'll pay for it.
And if that person doesn't work, they'll
find
pair you
another
up with
one.
somebody else. I went
Absolutely.
through, I think I've seen close to 50 therapists.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got one that I've been with for 13 years. So.
I mean, probably, I'm guessing finding a therapist is kind of like finding a spouse.
Oh my
You
God,
gotta go on a lot of
yes.
first dates.
Yes. Thankfully, mine was married already. Thank God. But yeah, it's really like dating. You got to pick which one you can talk to the best.
You got to feel like which one you feel comfortable with, and you know,
right?
Because you get pretty raw, you know. You know, I've done therapy before, and it is intense, and it's yeah. So kudos to you for
but
know,
it's
being
so
strong
worth
enough.
it. Yeah, and I hate it when people are like, "Oh, I don't need therapy." I'm thinking, yeah, you're the main reason. That's why you need to go to therapy.
I'm thinking the people that say I don't need therapy are the ones that actually need the therapy.
You
know, because they're still in that denial.
Exactly.
So it's opening up the minds and accepting the fact, you know what, no one's perfect, you know, and then you get the whole generational gaps, you know, with the millennials and the Gen Zs who, you know, everyone's so different. Who knows what this is going to be like in 20 years from now and what mental health is going to be like, you know. It's going to be interesting. So
yeah, and if you really want to know like a good thing for mental health, watch Inside Out 1 and 2. That's a great tool to understand what your emotions are, and they do a fantastic job of explaining it.
Isn't that a movie?
No. The Disney Pixar movie.
Is it really a Disney Pixar
movie?
I had no idea.
Yes.
I'm not a Disney girl, believe it or not. I know I'm going to get hate comments after this.
Got my Maleficent. See, that's why I've got villains on my arms. I got Ursula. Oops, wrong way. Wait a minute.
I see it.
Yeah. But I've got Joker and Harley Quinn because villains are so misunderstood due to trauma. And once that trauma gets noticed and that person starts to heal it, they're no longer evil.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how it works.
It is interesting. Who thunk it? We were so good, so smart.
That's why we were always good together.
I know. We don't get to see each other that much.
I definitely miss my hugs. But that was something that
we'll be down there soon.
Good. But that was something that we did in Mad Viking. Mental health.
We did.
The You Matter movement out of Texas.
Kyle has that shirt on tonight.
Yeah. Like mine was always Arbor Youth, the Biggs house, the adult house.
Yep.
And they needed mental health. There's just so much to it. And if the whole world could actually get on the mental health train wagon, I wonder how many less problems we would have.
I agree. But the sad part is, and no one sees it. Not everyone sees it the way we do, you know, but until we get it out there, you know, and if you think about mental health, you know, and if you go back years and years and years, you know, like 50s, 60s, 70s, all they did was throw them in an insane asylum. So really the whole mental health journey and revolution and all the modern practices and medications and all that stuff, it's still pretty new, you know? So it is interesting to see what the next 20 years are going to be like, because it's going to be totally different, I'm sure. You know,
it's going to explode in a great way.
It is. I just hope that right now there's so many holes. There's so many people that fall through the cracks. And until we find a way to fill in the earthquakes with icing, you know, we're going to continue down that path.
So a lot of therapists like to meet in person, but because of COVID, there's going to stay telehealth. And I actually know of one of the women that helped that stay protected in Kentucky. It's going to stay. So if you're not comfortable with seeing somebody face to face, or like Krista and I, we're what, 2.5 hours apart right now?
Out there,
3,
yeah.
2.5, 3 hours.
Anywhere in there, yeah.
So we can do this on video. You could do that with your therapist too, possibly.
Oh, absolutely. Telehealth is huge. We use it a lot.
Yeah. And like one of my kids' therapists, I love her to death. She is a wonderful person. She worked till 8:30 one night. And I was like, golly, how do you do that? She's like, well, I get to sleep in the morning. I'm like, hey, kudos for what you can control.
Well, and, you know, if you think about it, if you're a majority of your clients are children, they're in school, you know, so you have to do the later hours.
Yeah. Or people work.
Yeah, we do that, don't we?
Yeah, we do that a lot.
Yeah. So, I was going to say, the peanut gallery is pretty quiet tonight.
Yeah.
This is a hard one. This is a hard one.
This is a kind of a deep one, but that's okay. That's okay. It's good to, you know, shake things up a little bit. But any final words? We're approaching, you know, the time, and I'm no clue on how long the football game's going to run. So
it's probably going to wrap up here soon. But
okay.
Final words. You have to remember what you can control. You have to remember that you're not alone.
Absolutely.
And you have to find things that make you happy. And that's self-care.
Absolutely. That's a good ending. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Erica. I don't know if my husband wants to come over and do some final thoughts. I just got a thumbs up. He didn't respond. But thank you for everything. So I am going to attempt to move you to the back stage. You can hold tight. Remove from stage. All right. So Krista's takeover, or what is it called? Women takeover, whatever we decided to call it tonight. Thanks everybody for joining. I hope you guys like it. If you guys want to see more of these, it's up to you guys to request it. Otherwise, I don't know if my husband will let me. So have a good night, as he's, you know, giving me comments in the back. Have a good night, and we'll see you soon.